Russians are a peace-loving nation, but Russia's wealth has often teased aggressors, and then we had to take up arms. That's why a gun in the hands of a Russian is not an unusual sight. A major revolution occurred in weaponry in the 20th century with the advent of automatic guns, and it was crowned by the arrival of the Kalashnikov assault rifle. Kalashnikov is found on the tables of equipment of all branches and services of the Russian armed forces. It's a component part of our powerful defense potential. Russian weaponry is a reliable shield, protecting this country from the numerous armed clashes and conflicts that are flaring across the world. Over the past 10 or so years alone, wars broke out in the Caucasus, the Balkans, Lebanon, Iraq, Somalia, Libya and Syria. While in some places the gun barrels are still reeking, in other places the risks of new conflicts are already swelling. The United Nations says up to 500,000 people die every year in various armed conflicts. Sadly enough, the factor of military strength is on the increase. Even more sadly, it implies the use of conventional forces for destruction. We have a huge territory. Recall that the length of our land-surface border exceeds 50,000 kilometers. That's why we need strength and capability to rebuff the challenges to defense within the boundaries of our own state, as well as in the format of the Collective Security Treaty Organization and in line with commitments to our allies. Local wars and anti-terrorist operations have turned into the main types of conflicts nowadays. And the assault rifles play the main instrumental function in them. There is no sense in using heavy armaments if you have to free hostages or to seize a building held by terrorists. Even the availability of nuclear missiles does not annul the need for reliable small arms. If you have to guard just one Topol-M missile launching pad in a launch area, you need an infantry unit with small arms. That's because a single shot from a rifle will produce a heap of metal that will fly nowhere if the bullet hits the encasement of the nose cone. Powerful armaments are not needed in just every operation, especially in today's conditions, where the threat of terrorism exists. You surely won't use missile systems against a handful of paramilitaries. There are people who are ready to incapacitate them efficiently, but they won't do it without light small arms. Not a single army, not a single state, and not a single police force can do without individual light arms today. Kalashnikov is a standard weapon in the armies and security services of over 70 countries. It took baptism of fire in a real warfare in Vietnam. The Kalashnikov assault rifle and its modifications have been used in the armed conflicts in Africa, the Middle East, Central Asia and the Balkans. That is, virtually in all the wars fought in recent history. Wars are conducted by aggressors, not by weaponry designers. Mikhail Kalashnikov. For decades, designers in different countries put their best efforts into creating a weapon that would be more perfect than Kalashnikov, and still they would eventually get the very same assault rifle.
new weapons for the American infantrymen are tested at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, the new Standard rifle.
World powers engaged more or less successfully in the development of powerful and efficacious automated small arms practically throughout the entire 20th century. But the pivotal moment came with the arrival of the AK-47. This encoding contains the words automatic and Kalashnikov and the year of commissioning by the armed forces, 1947. One could see already in the phase of testing that the best small weapon of the time had been created. A cartridge fired from a Kalashnikov at a short distance pierced the lacing of light armored vehicles. Also, this was the first automatic weapon equipped with a bayonet, which meant it could be used in hand-to-hand combat actions. Last but not least, it came in handy as a pioneer tool thanks to its universal structure. We have simple weaponry because it was designed by an ordinary soldier. And who did he do it for? Certainly not for the graduates of top military schools. He designed it for a rank-and-file soldier. And that's how it happened that we have really simple weapons. But I can tell you for sure, this simplicity implies exceptional reliability. The role the Soviet Union played in world politics ensured a rapid promulgation for the Kalashnikov assault rifles everywhere. Besides, these guns looked really elegantly. Look at this sample. It's crying out for a place in the picture. Please excuse me. I probably shouldn't say it because I designed it. And yet I'm saying this because I get a lot of reports on the cases where it appears on the flags of other countries and over the buildings of state institutions. Naturally enough, they won't put a dread of some kind there. The Kalashnikov gun is featured in the coat of arms of Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and East Timor. It helped people in those countries in fighting for freedom and independence. When Mozambique ridded itself of the imperialist yoke, the soldiers returned home and began to name their newly born children, their sons, Kalash, like the gun. Probably it sounds like music to them. Once I read an article that said, call into any village where black-haired boys around you have the name Kalash. So you can see for yourselves how many children and grandchildren I have. As for the Kalashnikov, it has long stopped being merely a weapon and has grown over into a matter of pride of all Russian weaponry manufacturers. It's Russia's national brand. This assault rifle has appeared in thousands of Russian and foreign movies. It has become an icon of mass culture. It's a fiery revolutionary symbol in many countries, although in some it's a voguish accessory. And here is one more curious fact. Russian basketball player Andrei Kirilenko, who is playing for the NBA under number 47, has received the nickname of AK-47.
Andrei Kirilenko!
The history of weaponry making in this city and at the factory goes back more than 200 years. The kickoff was given to it by mining engineer Andrei Deryabin, who recommended building a factory on the river Ish to make cold steel and firearms and to bring the best gunsmiths from all over Russia and Europe here. The state set forth a crucial task to them, namely to forge weapons for the defenders of the homeland. Everything the Izhevsk gunsmith can take pride in is found in this hall. For instance, here is the first firelock, made at our ordnance factory. Our great-grandfathers used these flint guns against Napoleon's armies in the War of 1812. And here are the machine guns, aircraft guns, anti-tank guns that the factory built during World War II. And in 1947, we streamlined the manufacturing of the legendary Kalashnikov assault rifle that has grown into a symbol of our victories, glory, reliability, pride, and combat spirit. In 1941, Kalashnikov, then a young sergeant, took part in combat operations as a tank crew commander. After getting a wound in action, he found himself in a hospital ward. His natural talent and a simple soldier's notions of what the weaponry should be like enabled him to tap the right way to go. And so I started thinking it over as I was staying in hospital after I had received the wound. Why do all the Germans have automatic rifles, I thought? Here they were fairly rare then. I decided to try and design a submachine carbine for our soldiers. It was to be so simple that any workshop could start manufacturing it. And it was to be light and to have a compact size, so that a soldier could handle it easily just anywhere. The AK-47 initially had the brand name of Mikhtim, a word incorporating the first syllables of Kalashnikov's first name and patronymic. An experimental sample of the gun passed several contests. The claimed Soviet armorer Vasily Degtyaryov withdrew from the competition at a certain stage, as he had recognized the superiority of Kalashnikov's design. There were more upgrades, modifications and improvements yet to come, and the future had fame in store for the designer. Kalashnikov joked about it. When the issue of awarding a second title of hero to me was being considered, I knew, of course, that bronze busts of twice heroes are installed in public places. And so I thought where it could possibly be located. Izhevsk was the right choice because I've been working here since the start of my career. My children are armorers, and the whole city is. And that's why I thought the bust should be put up here. Recall that Deryabin, the founder of our factory, also stands by the pond. And I thought it might be good for both of us to stand here together. And I wrote a joke in verse then, where I asked Deryabin to move aside a little, as we would stand by the pond together. And I wrote a joke in verse then, where I asked Deryabin to move aside a little, as we would stand by the pond together. I told him he had drawn assistance from God, and I relied on my fatherland. The title of an armorer has a special sounding in Izhevsk. The city has many monuments linked to this title, and some of them may look bizarre for a person unfamiliar with local history. Take, for instance, a snub-nosed boy, Izhik by name, wearing an abnormally long kaftan that was put up recently as a mascot of Izhevsk. And here you can see an outright image of a crocodile. The thing is that the workers who scored particularly outstanding labor achievements would be presented with an ornate green kaftans out of expensive English broadcloth in the 19th century. The kaftans would come together with accessories, walking canes and glossy black top hats. The decrees of decorating the workers would be signed personally by the czars. And although the overall number of winners of those awards did not exceed 600 people, the joking nicknames like kaftan wearers and crocodiles became firmly sealed to the gunsmith of Izhevsk. The factory produced more than 4 million diverse weapons prior to the revolution of November 1917. The country kept arming itself actively during the Soviet period and supplying its produce to all corners of the globe. The factory had 80,000 workers then. The disintegration of the USSR brought about a sharp decline of production. The state defense order shrank and financing was practically unavailable. The 1990s were a time of transition, a really hard time. We didn't have customer orders or work to fulfill. But it's noteworthy that the factory and its staff managed to get over the ordeal. We did it on our own, and this testifies to the strength of spirit and professionalism of our workers. After the hardships of the 1990s, the manufacturing of weaponry in Izhevsk has regained strength. Noteworthy enough, in contrast with the Soviet times, the city is seeing a revival of a feature that the local people have traditionally held dear. It's the very sensation of history of weapons making, which is 200 years old here. Positioned on the city's highest hill is the church building that is now believed to be the main local symbol. It is the Archangel Michael's Cathedral. The Orthodox Christian tradition considers him to be the chief of the heavenly host of angels guarding the laws of the Lord. It was built in 1907 to mark the centenary jubilee of the Izhevsk Ordnance Factory. The funds for construction were raised by the workers. Each of them deduced a kopeck from each ruble of wages to the project. And this footage was shot in 1937, when the cathedral was destroyed. It re-emerged by the time of the factory's 200th jubilee. Old sketches and photographs came in handy for the purpose. Simultaneously, a tradition of holding sermons in honor of Russian weaponry and its manufacturers was reborn too. Patriarch of Moscow in all Russia, Alexei II, who consecrated the church, said, "I hope the glory of Izhevsk will be revived through the prayers of the Lord's Archangel Michael, and everything will return properly to where it should be, including respect for the production of weaponry. The very word gunsmith will again be a great title for the Russians, for the Russian workers." I designed weapons for the defense of my homeland, and I'd like them to continue serving the goal. Mikhail Kalashnikov. When you speak to many of our officers and servicemen of the specialized branches of the Defense Ministry or the Spetsnaz units reporting to the Central Military Intelligence Department, all of them admit they have a broad arsenal of instruments for armed struggle. But still they always clutched at the Kalashnikov guns behind their backs, just in case, to be sure. Individual small arms should have an ability to survive in any type of combat, and that's why the assault rifles are subject to the harshest imaginable tests at the trial and testing station. First, the guns are frozen to the Arctic temperatures. When the freezing is complete, the testing expert takes a gun to a special climate chamber, where the conditions of a biting winter are simulated. A chain of control shots comes. The gun is working faultlessly. And here, now the conditions resemble those of a desert. The one during a sandstorm. A finely ground dry substance is fed into an airtight box. The testing expert is wearing a special protective suit, but the gun has no protection at all. When the density of dust reaches the maximum parameter, a new chain of shots is made. And the gun works perfectly once again.
In
the early 1980s, when I was doing a tour of military duty as an airborne soldier in Afghanistan, I took part in combat operations.
Эта машина никогда не подводила.
The Kalashnikov never let anyone down. It never failed to function. Only a full mechanical breakup or a direct hit of a bullet or shell fragment could destroy or put it out of action. I personally don't know any other situation where a Kalashnikov would go wrong.
Были моменты, когда единственным средством, скажем, как спасения.
There were moments when the gun I'm holding in my hands was the only means of helping or rescuing the fellow soldiers, when it was the only straw giving assistance and offering a way out.
Ниточкой той, которая давала надежду и выручала в сложившейся ситуации. Хоть он и старый.
Although the gun is old, it was manufactured in 2003, it happened to become my standard weapon.
Тоже, может, было предложение.
Others offered me to swap it for a newer rifle, but I told them, well, let me see. Maybe it's still good for something. Let's put it into readiness for combat. 4 cartridges, and each one hit the mark. That's how it is. I told them, no, guys, leave it to me. It's good and reliable. I keep a photo I made after I put my Kalashnikov into order. It testifies to the fact. I keep it as a reminder. And here is the testing in conditions close to a real combat. The Kalashnikovs are being handled by the people who use them in combat operations. None of the guns that got into the water are ready for action. None, except the Kalashnikovs. The Kalashnikov assault rifle has one more distinct feature. It has a simple structure. Any soldier, even a new draftee, is able to disassemble and assemble it. Any schoolboy and any schoolgirl here in Izhevsk knows the setup of the Kalashnikov by heart, and some of them are prepared to compete in the swiftness of stripping and reassembly of the gun with the chief executive officer of the ordnance factory.
Самый надежный в мире автомат.
That's the world's most reliable automatic rifle that can be disassembled, reassembled, and clean the field.
Иностранные военные специалисты.
Many foreign experts told us frankly that they picked up the Kalashnikovs in different hotbeds of conflicts whenever they got an opportunity to do so, and would sling their authorized rifles over the shoulder.
Подбирали наши автоматы, а свои за спину.
The Kalashnikovs gave them a hope for survival in the battlefield.
В том, что они останутся живы на поле боя.
Well, let's try and do it. The handling standards require that a Kalashnikov be disassembled in 15 seconds and reassembled in 25. This will bring you an excellent mark. Sport was not the reason for inventing the standards. Intense combat doesn't leave much time for soldiers to get the weapons ready for shooting. Either you dawdle or turn into an enemy's target, or else you do things quickly and resolve the tests. You won. Congrats. Thank you. All the essential things are simple, and all the naughty things are inessential. Mikhail Kalashnikov. Manufacturing of weapons does not rely on high technologies alone. It reflects the general level of development of one or another state or nation. It always involves technological secrets. However, we'll unveil some secrets of Russian weaponry making for you. Weaponry is based on precision mechanics, and its manufacturing requires a fleet of high-tech machinery and the experience of gifted specialists. At present, Izhmash has a deficit of both. Production shops having the machines with computer numerical controls are located side by side with the equipment built 50 years ago. Now we're standing in a workshop, and you can see here the type of machine tools we have today. Hello? Well, here are our machine tools. Naturally, the fleet is old, but they are functioning. It turns out as much produce as it can. Sadly enough, it can't produce more. And now we're in a different workshop. The newest equipment is installed here. The manufacturing operations include the treatment of bolts and bolt carriers, or the very backbone of the assault rifles. The previous technology of producing just one component required 120 different operations at various machines that were serviced by 60 workers. Now just one worker does it in 2 or maximum 3 steps. That's an incredible technology. I get a lot of pleasure working at these machines. I've upgraded my qualifications. It's a great place to work at. And still, how are the Kalashnikov guns manufactured? It all starts with billets of special gun steel. The robotic machine tools produce semi-finished bars that are turned into barrels. The next shop manufactures butt stops, grip handles and magazines. They're made out of a specialized plastic that withstands biting frosts and tropical heat waves in combat. All the component parts of the future guns are now heading for the assembly shop. The assault rifles are assembled manually, and this is a specific feature of the technology. A weapon like this will never let you down in combat. This is the most crucial section of the workshop, where the barrels are matched with boxes, after which the product is deemed to be a weapon. From here, it starts a voyage on the hook of a transporter to other shops. Each new procedure adds touches to the final look of a carbine, a sniping rifle, or an assault rifle. The fully assembled guns undergo a shoot-in in a gallery range. Here we adjust the precision of targeting and firing. That's okay. I'll be the first to stretch out my hand to the man who does it better, Mikhail Kalashnikov. We inherited a host of ordnance factories from the USSR that had conspicuously backward technologies. We don't need the heaps of weaponry of that kind now. Contemporary weaponry envisions up-to-date manufacturing processes and methods of utilization, and that's why a new idea sprang up. It implied consolidation of the entire weaponry industry. All the state-run factories around Izhmash, around the Izhevsk brand, around Kalashnikov, Russia's great brand. The country's top leadership took a decision to create a weaponry corporation bearing the legendary designer's name. Mikhail Kalashnikov gave official consent to the use of his name in the title of the new company. He signed an authorizing document and submitted it to Director General Konstantin Busygin with a valedictory message to honor and multiply the best traditions of Russian weaponry manufacturing at the Kalashnikov Corporation from now on. How will we benefit from it? Well, in the first place, we'll get a combination of designers' ideas and competitiveness. Secondly, we'll have a compact but highly advanced production process. Workers of the manufacturing facilities embraced by the common idea and common endeavors will have big wages. This will be a vertically integrated holding company that will bring together certain factories on the principles of self-reliance. We'll have gunpowder and cartridge factories of our own. The setting up of the Kalashnikov Corporation means something more than a merger of the Izhmash and Izhmer state plants. In the future, we'll also embrace the Molot sports and hunting guns producer and the renowned factories in Tula, and the design bureaus, of course. Russia has 2 schools of weaponry making. The Tula school, which is the oldest, and the Ижевsk school.
Ижевская. Думаю, что
I think it makes sense for both of them to work in a tandem in the Kalashnikov Corporation.
тандеме. Скажем, лучшие компетенции здесь
For instance, we have more competence in assault rifles,
в пушках.
while the Tula people are competent, say, in cannons. So we'll divide the work respectively.
Соревноваться в данном случае.
Competition is needed not within our own circle, but with foreign partners. Let me put it this way. That's why this corporation is being set up.
Ну и самое главное это
And the main thing, of course, is the thrust to the overseas markets, because it's not tanks, cannons, assault rifles, or jets that are competing there. It's corporations with the experience, skills, and strong shoulders. The Defense Ministry decided to give up the purchase of Kalashnikovs in 2011. It claimed that the existing reserves exceeded the armed forces' need for them dozens of times over. But as for more perfect weapons, the ministry would scrutinize the offer.
Мы разрабатываем новые.
We are developing new weaponry, many modifications.
К сожалению, не можем.
Unfortunately, we can't show them because many are still classified.
Также разрабатываем.
Also, we've drawn up a program of modernization of the weaponry that has already been manufactured and is stored at the Defense Ministry's depots,
Минобороны, в частности, вот
including our Kalashnikovs like these ones.
Kalashnikovs.
Modernization envisions the fitting out of a traditional AK-47 with a special Picatinny tactical rail, on which one can mount a collimator sight, night vision optics, laser target indicators, an under-barrel grenade launcher, a searchlight, a bayonet, a conventional folding buttstock, a bipod for firing from a prone position, and a foregrip. Installation of a telescopic buttstock and a magazine with a greater amount of cartridges is also possible.
Таким образом, мы уйдем от утилизации.
We'll bypass the need for recycling this way, bypass the shameful destruction of the assault rifles.
Автоматов, потому что
Because human soul and people's money was put into its design, and now we're spending people's money again to destroy their stocks.
А так мы сделаем модернизацию.
We'll modernize the product so much needed by the Defense Ministry and the Interior Ministry, and will return it to the depots.
Внутренних дел продукцию.
This will mean economy for the state that will earn 6 billion rubles.
6 миллиардов рублей.
Меня радует то, что
I'm glad to see that the people engaged in development of the Kalashnikov never stop or mark time.
останавливают на месте. Так вот, автомат Kalashnikov
This gun has an even greater potential for modernization in the future.
потенциал модернизации.
Любое уважающее, сильное
Any strong nation that is economically developed and industrialized and has respect for itself should have high-quality firearms in its arsenals.
оружие.
It is here that the concepts of new weaponry are born. And the first thing you take notice of are the young faces of development engineers. That's unusual for any seasoned weaponry expert.
Я понимаю, что
I realize we don't have a future without young people, and that's why I try to employ as many college graduates as possible, so that they could mature into respected weaponry designers someday.
достойных конструкторов.
Здесь интересно на самом деле работать, то есть
It's really interesting to work here.
проектировать
This is
даже
something more than
самолеты
just designing.
может быть не так интересно,
Even engines and jets are less interesting if you take the designing process.
а потом
Here you can do a sketch, and it so happens sometime later that you are holding the thing you sketched in your hands.
контрольно-испытательную станцию,
Then you take it to the controlling station and shoot at the targets from it there.
и на полигон.
And if you're lucky, you go to a testing range with it. That's exactly what happened to me. Well, maybe I'm a really lucky guy. Mikhail Kalashnikov himself was slightly older than 20 when he began to develop his assault rifle project.
Я молодежи желаю
I wish the young people a lot of diligent work.
любите
Love your homeland and love the older generations.
свое поколение.
And do love our past.
Наше прошлое, не все у нас было.
Far from everything in it was as bad as some people are painting it.
Поэтому надо быть
It's important to practice patriotism all the time. It's important to support the older generations and to love the history of our weapons manufacturing.
историю.
We need a new type of weapon, a contemporary and modular one. The new materials our industries have at their disposal now, the new requirements for ergonomics, that is, the adjustment of a weapon to the concrete soldier, gives us an opportunity to make improvements and to go farther. That's why the Kalashnikov Corporation presents a new line of weapons today. It has imbued the best properties of the Kalashnikov assault rifle, and yet it marks a step forward. The AK-12 assault rifle is one of the latest highlights that's been submitted to weaponry experts and to the military for scrutiny. It was designed by Vladimir Zlobin. AK-12 is different from the Kalashnikovs of early generations for big accuracy of fire, a minimal blowback, and extended service resource. It's been adapted to firing in complete darkness, and it can be controlled with just one hand. The AK-12 has largely different ergonomic properties. It's fully adapted to suit the left-handers and right-handers. The reloading hand grip can be mounted either on the right or left. The buttstock is telescopic and can be folded either rightwards or leftwards. Along with this, the new gun is as simple as the previous ones. Ideologists of armaments should not maroon themselves in their offices and think about improvement. They should be in the field, in the battlefield, in the field of sham fighting. They must keep a permanent contact with the people who use weaponry directly in combat. Weapons should have the reliability that is typical of my AK-74M gun. It'd be nice to have more powerful munitions here. This would improve the tactical and technical parameters. Lightness and convenience during airborne landings also matter. It should be convenient during parachuting. Weight is to be reduced because a soldier has many other things on him, in addition to the gun, when he goes on a special assignment, say in the mountains or in the woodland. Then each 100 grams of weight are crucial. We're preparing this rifle for commissioning by the armed forces. The assault rifle has become lighter than the authorized one, by 100 grams, and it may slim down in the future again. Improvements will continue, and it will lose another 200 grams. You can mount various sighting devices on the Picatinny rail. You can put the foregrip on the handguard, and it will be easier to hold the gun when you shoot. Or you can install a tactical silencer on the muzzle. The gun is fitted out with various magazines that have a normal capacity or an enlarged one. The latter allows of a fairly intensive fire. The magazine contains 96 cartridges. Emergence of the new up-to-date small arms is important not only for the Russian Army's tables of equipment, but also for the consolidation of Russia's positions on the world market of weaponry. Our guns attract potential buyers along many parameters. In addition to reliability and quality, they are much less expensive than their Western analogs. Compare the cost of a new generation Russian gun in the standard configuration that sells for less than $500, while the price of a similar German gun is around 2,500 euros. But the story does not end there. There is no idling when it comes to organizing weaponry exhibitions. Also, there is no place for idleness or thriftiness when lobbying groups or clouding law firms are needed. But lobbies and influence groups should not consist of randomly chosen people. All of them should be integrated in a conglomerate with a shared ideology and a division of competences. That's why the Kalashnikov Corporation stands for technological improvements of the already well-established brands, and on top of that, for getting broader shoulders and broader opportunities and promulgating our intellect to the world markets of weaponry. We do believe in that future. Russia is the world's #2 exporter of defense products. It occupies 20% in the global sales of armaments. Almost half of the planet purchases Russian small arms. Their consumers are located in Latin America, Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. The US is found on the list of importers too. In 2012, Russian weaponry exports totaled $14 billion. When President Vladimir Putin and I examined the issue of setting up the Kalashnikov Corporation, he raised the problem of defense of the copyrights of our weaponry ideologists and designers, and in the first place, the brands like Kalashnikov. More than 100 million Kalashnikov guns have been made in the world to date. In the 1950s, the manufacturing licenses were issued to 18 countries, most of them member states of the Warsaw Treaty Organization. These licenses expired a long time ago, but manufacturing of the guns continues. Illegal manufacturing. At first sight, these NATO countries, the European Union, seem to be the civilized world. They assure Russia of the importance of curbing the output of counterfeits, and yet they ignore the very same rules themselves. They ignore our rights, our intellectual property. And the task the Kalashnikov Corporation is facing today is to register not only a national brand, but rather a world brand. We should make everyone pay for the utilization of Russian engineering ideas, for using the things created in Russia. Izhevsk has been a city of gunsmiths from its inception, and it must occupy an honorable place in the defense of the homeland in the future. Victory Day is probably the brightest national holiday that unites the entire Russia. The combat operations of World War II did not reach the city, but people here celebrate May 9th with a sense of being part of the combat glory of all the generations of defenders of peace and stability in this country. We have lived through too many wars and aggressions, and that's why we understand and appreciate weaponry. The one that is up to date, perfect and efficacious. The one that enables our nation to live in security. And as long as we have top-notch arms, no one will dare meddle with our life. And we'll live in peace.